Okay, so after weeks and weeks of political gridlock, it looks like there might finally be a breakthrough in the federal government shutdown. The big question is, what's actually happening in Washington, and are we really seeing the end of this thing? Let's break it all down.
And this isn't just any shutdown. We're talking about the longest one in U.S. history. But a really key development just happened that suggests this whole record-setting mess could finally be coming to an end. So what changed?
Well, the breakthrough is coming from the Senate. They've just managed to pass a funding bill, which is, the first real legislative step we've seen toward reopening the government. But before we get into what's in that bill, I think it's worth remembering why this matters so much, the real-world consequences this shutdown's been causing.
Because, let's be honest, this is so much more than just politics. The shutdown has had real, tangible, and honestly increasingly disruptive consequences for people all across the country.
Here's a perfect example of what I mean, something you can really feel. Airlines were actually forced to cancel roughly 6% of their flights at major U.S. airports. And why? Well, it's because of critical staffing shortages, especially with federal employees like air traffic controllers not being there. It just goes to show how this stuff creates these economic ripple effects that end up impacting pretty much everyone.
And trust me, the impact goes way beyond the airports. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of federal workers who've been going without pay. We're talking about essential services being strained to the breaking point, and it's a huge drag on the entire U.S. economy. This is a problem that has literally been getting worse every single day.
Okay, so all of this mounting pressure, it brings us right back to the Senate, where lawmakers have finally hammered out a deal. So what exactly does this solution they've come up with look like?
Now, what's really crucial to understand is that this is not a permanent fix. Not at all. It's a compromise, and it's designed to just get the wheels turning again. For most government agencies, it's just a short-term funding extension to get them open right now. Think of it like a temporary patch. For some other parts of the government, though, it does provide a little more long-term stability.
The big takeaway here is that the bill did pass. But look at that vote, 60 to 40. That's just enough to get it across the finish line, but it is far from a unanimous agreement. And that really highlights the deep political divisions that are still very much at play, which is super important as we move to the next stage.
See, passing the Senate was just the first step. To actually become law, this bill now faces its next big hurdle, a vote over in the House of Representatives.
And yeah, the clock is ticking. The House is expected to vote on this bill really soon, possibly as early as Wednesday. So all eyes are on them now to see if this compromise is actually going to hold.
But this is definitely not a done deal. We're already hearing that some House Democrats are against it. Their main issue, as pointed out in The Guardian, is that the bill doesn't include extensions for certain health insurance subsidies that they see as a top priority. So this sets up another potential political showdown, only this time it's all about healthcare policy.
So, when you pull all of this together, we're kind of left with a critical question, right? Is this a moment of real relief, or is it just a temporary pause before the next political fight inevitably breaks out?
We're basically looking at two different outcomes playing out at the same time. On the one hand, if this bill passes the House, we get immediate relief. The government reopens, federal services get back to normal, great. But on the other hand, the political conflict, that just keeps going. The deep disagreements, especially around healthcare, they haven't gone anywhere.
And that leads us to the final, and I think most important question. This bill, it offers a temporary fix, a pause in the crisis. But has the underlying conflict that led us to the longest shutdown in U.S. history actually been solved? Well, that's the question that Washington, and really the entire country, is going to have to face very soon.